Today is Wednesday, March the 23rd, 2011. I'm Tony Casey.
I'm Heath Mullican.
And I'm Steve Stanley. Welcome to the Techology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. The world's only user-antagonistic podcast. This is episode 99.
Woohoo! Well, we welcome everyone to the show. We know people are still coming in the chat room. You noticed that you didn't hear Matthew T.G., the Wiz. He will join us in a little bit. He's in Washington, D.C. The reason he is not with us right now is because I'm running the controls, and I do not have the wherewithal to know how to bring two people in on Skype at the same time. It is our privilege and joy this morning to have with us Robin White. Robin White is in Japan.
Welcome, Robin.
He is a global partner, and we're just going to let him introduce himself. And Robin, just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and the ministry that you do there in Japan.
All right. Well, I'm Robin White, as I guess you already said. Coming from Canada. I'm a Wesleyan missionary living in Nagoya, Japan. I've been here for just over 3 years now, 3.5 almost, and loving it for the most part.
All right.
Now you have some ties to Bethany Bible College, I understand.
Yes, I do. I graduated there in 2002. And it was actually that year that I came to Japan for the first time, just for a year as an English teacher. But I was actually a youth major in college at Bethany.
My heart goes out to you. So how did when you first went to Japan, how did that whole thing get started, and really how did God lead you to start your service over there?
Well, as I said, I was a youth ministry major. But at that time, I was having trouble finding a youth ministry job, actually. Just for several months after graduation, I was searching, and the doors were not opening for me in that kind of ministry. And I actually had posted my resume on a youth ministry website, and a guy in Osaka, Japan, contacted me about coming to work at his school there. He's a Christian guy, and he was looking for Christian teachers. And so I ended up going there for just a year to teach English, and did a little bit of ministry. Like I said, I was working for a Christian, but mainly was just teaching English. And I guess after that, I came home, but I really felt like Japan was where my heart was, and I really saw how great of a need there was for missionaries, and just that I had a burden on my heart for the Japanese people ever since that time.
Wow. Now, we don't have any, we talked about this with Andrea last week, that there aren't any Wesleyan churches currently in Japan, correct? And so we were working with another denomination. How has your relationship been with them, and where are you in relationship to where Andrea is at, and do you guys do any work together?
We don't work together a lot. Usually, if we see each other, it's usually at a big denominational event.
Right.
We're a few hours away from each other by train, or by car. My geography is not that great, to be honest, but she's a few hours away, and we basically each have our own ministries working with separate. Right. Basically, like we're on different districts.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So who are you working with currently?
I'm in Nagoya. I work with the Emmanuel Nagoya Church here, and with some other churches in the area as well. I do some English teaching, some youth ministry and music ministry, and occasional other things, preaching or whatever.
So Robin,
go ahead.
I was going to say, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your experience with the tsunami? I know it's really radically different. I think we get the idea here in the States that everyone in the country was rocked by this, but that's not the case. And you were telling us in our show prep a little bit about your experience. So share that with our listeners and how you kind of just became aware.
Yeah, I was actually, well, I was here in Nagoya, and again, I don't, my geography's not great, but a few hundred miles away. And so I felt the earthquake, and it's actually the biggest I've ever felt. It lasted for a good couple of minutes, but wasn't even enough to knock anything over or break anything. So I didn't think too much of it. I went on with my day, and was actually sitting in Starbucks playing with my iPhone.
Wow.
And reading on Twitter other people's comments on what had happened, and started to realize just how big it was. And that's when I came home and saw on the news and on the internet the footage of the earthquake and the tsunami happening. And yeah, that's when it really hit me how big it was.
Yeah, I want to, we'll get into that more. Now, you said something that's interesting, and this is something we've discussed on this show, but I find it fascinating that you got the news from Twitter.
Yep.
And we just discussed last week on this show, and we're going to talk about Twitter again this week, how that is really becoming a main source of information and news for people. So is this, for you, is this a major portal where you get your news?
Sometimes, yeah. Especially in areas that interest me, ministry connections and things like that. And of course, I follow other people who are connected with Japan, other missionaries and other expats in Japan. And so there were some people in Tokyo tweeting about what had happened, and that's basically how I found out.
Now, what has been your involvement with Crash Japan and with some of the relief work over there so far?
Well, my role has been in the home base that they've set up in Tokyo. They basically, well, they had to set it up on short notice, obviously.
Right.
Crash was a very loosely organized organization, made up of missionaries and just responding as needs came. But of course, when this came, they mobilized pretty quickly to get something together, and they knew it was going to have to be big. So they've set up a base in Tokyo. Currently, they're borrowing facilities from an international school there that's on break right now. And I was working in the office, basically doing IT work, helping everybody get set up on emails and phones and stuff like that to try to recruit volunteers. And also we had other groups of people are working on connecting with churches and people in the affected areas to find out what the needs are. And so, like I said, we had to mobilize very quickly. So we've gone from a staff or a volunteer staff of about 20 people the first day, and I think there was over 100 by the end of the week.
Wow.
And of course, a lot of communication needs there, trying to send out teams and keep in touch with them and keep them safe.
Right.
And well, at the same time, recruiting more volunteers, raising funds and things like that. So I was helping in the technical side of that. Felt a little bit out of my league for some of it, but we had a pretty good team coming together there. So,
wow. Well, I don't know. This to me has been amazing this week because once, and I don't know what the current stat is, but once it seems like that the nuclear stations in Japan were kind of coming under control. The news in America has switched completely to the situation in Libya. And so I would say for the past 5 or 6 days, we've heard very little.
Well, except for this morning. There's black smoke coming out of reactor number 3, and they've again pulled everybody out. And so it looks like we might be in for another explosion. One of the questions in the chat room is whether you can tell us the name of the man that is kind of acting as district superintendent in Japan there. Is it Katsumata, Reverend Katsumata?
I'm not sure who you're referring to there.
Okay, just one of the people in the chat room asked if that name was familiar and in a capacity that you'd be aware of.
Not off the top of my head, no.
All right.
Might be another area.
You know, another topic of discussion here in the States, Robin, has been nuclear energy in general. And so, as Heath said, the first 48 hours, it's tsunami and it's all of that. But since the nuclear reactors or the nuclear plant has had its issues, so now it's sparked this big debate here. And I guess it's a debate worth having. I'm not sure now is the time. Yeah, it's incredible.
I don't know the purpose that the young American teacher, a female, was in Japan. I imagine that there are Christian agencies involved in exposing people to the gospel through that means. But there was a young lady who was from Virginia, and she saw all of her charges, all of her pupils safely to their parents before getting on her bicycle and heading to her apartment, and was engulfed in the tsunami and lost her life. She's the first and so far only American life we know of that was lost. But if she was there with a Christian agency, it might be an opportunity for exposure to the gospel. She certainly demonstrated values that we would applaud.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So where you guys are at? What like I said, we are for the past 5 days we're kind of getting out of the loop, and I feel like Americans are very good at. It went from being about the Japanese people to nuclear power. Wait a minute, we live 30 minutes from a nuclear power plant. How is this going to affect us? And so we're just really caught up in our own little world. So tell us really what's it like on the ground over there, and how can we kind of keep this in front of people that we can't comprehend how devastating this was. I mean, we see it on the news, and literally you see a town of 17,000, 10,000 people, of those people are missing. I mean, just kind of what's it like on the ground, and what are some next steps that we can do to help kind of continue the relief efforts?
Well, I haven't been to the affected area myself, but I know, like you said, it's just devastating. Even just seeing it on the news, it's something I think it's something that's affected all of Japan, even though it's just a small portion of the country that's directly affected. It's something everybody's talking about. I mean, I was back here safely in Nagoya, and if you go out on the street, everything looks normal and stuff, but almost every conversation I've had has come around to talking about the earthquake and the tsunami. And
I assume that the response of the Christians there is pretty strong based on your blog. You talk about establishing 80 bases of operation and 1,000 volunteers on a rotating basis. That's a significant operation.
Yeah, that's the plan. Right now, I think Crash, as of a few days ago anyway, Crash had one base established in Sendai, and I think 5 different teams out delivering relief supplies and things like that. And the plan was to expand that this week to another base, and probably within a couple of weeks they'll have all 5 bases established, and eventually there'll be sub bases under each of those, and 80 bases in total. And all of that is done in connection with churches in the area, using church facilities. And as I said, people at headquarters have been contacting churches and Christians in the area.
Wonderful.
And that's basically how they Crash works, is with the local churches, in order to reach their communities and meet the needs that are in those communities.
Wow.
Wonderful.
That's phenomenal.
All righty. Well, Robin, we'll continue to encourage our listeners to check in with Crash. Perhaps you could just give us a little bit of contact information. Where can our listeners find you on the internet? And go ahead and tell them where they can plug into Crash and be part of the relief effort that they are so active in.
Sure. Crash Japan is found at crashjapan.com. And if you're interested in volunteering or giving in any way, there's information there that you can easily find, and they are updating it every day with news about what Crash is doing and what the needs are as well. For me personally, my website, my blog is at japanlog.tumblr.com. And actually, if you go to robinwhiteonline.com, that'll get you there too.
And what if people want to follow you on Twitter? Where can they find you there?
I am Schizoman on Twitter. SKITZOMAN.
I've been wondering how to pronounce that for the last couple of days.
Schizoman, as in schizophrenic.
Well,
it helps when there's two of you working at the same test.
Oh, man.
We know what you mean.
Well, Robin, thanks so much for taking time out to be with us. And if there's any message that you want us to get out in the future through our podcast, we would love the opportunity to do that. And,
sure.
Again, if there are needs that we can meet, we really want to. All of America has been touched by what's happened there.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
They're eager to help.
Yeah, and we definitely would love to, we definitely want to continue this relationship and have you on the show just for updates and just to talk other tech stuff too, man. We're just happy to, with you and Andrea, we're very grateful you guys were able to come on with us. And I don't think, even as Wesleyans, we didn't really know what our role was in Japan. So it's been very enlightening and very encouraging. And just know that you guys are probably, you were prayed for before, but now, we're hoping that those prayers are doubled and tripled now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, it's felt like, I'm not the first to say this, but people call Japan the forgotten mission field.
Right.
And I feel like if anything good has come out of this, that it's gotten Japan back on people's radars.
Nice.
And hopefully people are more aware of not only the physical needs, but the spiritual needs here.
Absolutely.
And we'll continue to pray in the months and years to come as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Robin. Blessings on you.
Blessings on you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Robin.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
We need to take a moment out here, gentlemen, to just give props to Dr. Joanne Lyon and her secretary especially, Priscilla Hammond, because they're the ones that they suggested Robin and Andrea and worked that out for us. And so just really appreciate.
It's great when the denominational hierarchy is connected at that level.
Oh, yeah.
And assisting in that level.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'll never forget being a freshman at Southern Wesleyan University. I was a little Baptist boy, and we were in accountability.
And then the Lord saved him.
We were in accountability, and I just remember a guy saying, "Hey, where's so-and-so?" And he was just listening out, saying, "Well, so-and-so's at this church, so-and-so." And I was so impressed by that. Yeah. And that's why I love being a part of our denomination, is there is a sense of community and connectedness.
That's right.
And especially, when most of the time the top-down is not really
right.
And most of the time that community feeling is great, and then you bring in Matthew T.
Yes.
There he is. The boy wonder.
How are you,
Matthew? We're going to have to put a black censor bar in front of your T-shirt.
What's that? No, look at that. Look at that. Look at that now. I thought he'd be wearing a Badger shirt, to be honest with you, but the conversion's not going well.
It's easy to win when your team shoots 50 free throws and the other team
gets
shot in the face.
Heath, what are you saying, man? Come on and say it. Just say it.
The heels messed up his bracket. That's what he's saying.
Well, I had many brackets. Speaking of brackets.
That's a funny shade of orange, though. That's all I want to say.
Speaking of brackets, a little segue here. Todd Kemp right now is the leader in the Techology Show Bracket Challenge in ESPN, and I want to apologize. I mistakenly put 2 entries in because I created the group, and so when I created my first entry, it automatically went into that group.
That's one way of winning.
I didn't see it, dude. I'm 2 of the bottom 4. So
you've got no excuse, though, man.
And so because of that, multiple people enter multiple times, and that's okay.
All righty. Hey, listen. Our next story here, I hope you guys had a chance to at least look at this. There is a blog where a guy gave 5 reasons to Twitter in church.
Yes.
So, why you should Twitter in church. And I put it that
Amen.
way. Yeah. Well, okay, Tej. I mean, you're amening over there. So, I mean, why do you say that?
It's all about getting your name and your face out to people and to your community. And so, I mean, he makes 5 good points about why it's important, both personally, is to keep like a log of things that have impacted you during a service, but also to help promote your church and help talk about your church. It lets people know that the church is alive, that it's there, that it's working, and that obviously it's being impactful in somebody's life. So.
Okay, but some pastors would say that is distracting you from the pastor's point of view. I'm preaching. I've taken my time to prepare. I don't want you
Grace.
stuff
No,
out.
I mean, if anything, if it's going to be distracting, it's going to be distracting for the other people in the congregation. That's where I would worry the most. I mean, you've got to be able to know how to handle things like that without causing a distraction to the people around you. But any pastor or public speaker worth their salt, that shouldn't even be an issue. The whole thought of it's distracting to me.
Here's the thing. Number one, I think it helps keep people awake and engaged in the message. Number two, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but it has become, for the most part, culturally acceptable to be on your phone during church. I heard a story. I hope this guy's not listening, but my buddy was telling me a story one time. The pastor's on the platform during the singing. His phone rings. He answered it during the singing, and it's carrying on a conversation.
Oh my!
And,
I was in a church service when a pastor did that one time.
he told his girlfriend to
while he
quit
was
calling
preaching,
him on
while he
Sunday
was-
mornings.
Not singing.
I
He was
often-
in the pulpit.
I often check mine. The sound men. That's their way of
Yeah.
communicating with me. So if I get buzzed in the middle of that, I'll look to see if it's them. But I understand that during the Sermon on the Mount with Jesus, the birds were twittering. So, apparently it's okay.
Well,
You need
the
to
author
finish
of this
up.
article makes a good point about Twitter in the Bible. It comes out of Isaiah, where the Bible talks about twittering.
What's it saying?
I can't remember, but let me look.
I love
One
it.
of those gripping
Like a
passages
swallow,
you'll
like
never
a
forget.
crane, so I twitter. Isaiah 38, verse 14.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Rob Bell
Well,
answer
listen,
to me.
I'm afraid in all the chatter of our conversation that you guys missed Matthew's story about a pastor and answering a cell phone. So just you give that one again, Tej.
Well, I mean, it definitely wasn't Twitter, but it was a full-on cell phone ringing during a sermon. The guy was up there. He was preaching. I believe he was preaching from the Sermon on the Mount, of all things. And his phone rings, and it rang a couple times, and he had it in a holster on his belt. And the pastor picked up the phone, and he said, "Hello? Yeah, this is him. Well, I'm preaching right now. Can I call you back after I'm done? Okay, talk with you in a little bit. Bye." And put his phone back.
Oh, I love that story, man. So now there are some churches where I think that they encourage their attenders to use Twitter as a form to ask questions.
Yeah.
After
Big
the
time. I mean,
service.
there's some that have either text messaging where you can text a question in. I know that Mars Hill's done that, but there are also some that do that. Steven Sheets did a great job with this during the pre-conference in Jacksonville, where it wasn't utilized as well as I wish it was by people, but where you could submit questions, polls, all kinds of different things via Twitter.
I'm a little ADD, and I need to do 2 things at once to really listen. Very few people can so mesmerize me with their eyes that I can just look at them and listen to them and take in what they're saying. Normally, I need to be doing something else, but I'm listening to you. If you make me stop that other thing I'm doing, I'm really not hearing as much as I was before.
Here's another thing, and I don't want to get off Twitter, but I remember somebody told a story in church. This has been in the last couple of months, and I immediately went to my phone on Wikipedia, and I was fact checking the speaker.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's something you got to look forward to. But
that's something you got to be careful about as a pastor, to be sure that what you're talking about is right, and encouraging your people not to use Wikipedia.
Absolutely.
Nashville pastor in the chat room says, he'll sometimes make a point in the in his sermons, he'll say, "Hey, that's definite Facebook material." I've said before, I'm like, I said something. I said, I hope that doesn't get tweeted, and sure enough, there it went.
It got tweeted.
And
well, something that I do in the evening service is I always have my computer open, and I've got Bible Gateway and stuff up. And at least on one occasion, someone asked a question, and Matthew said, "Well, I'm not sure. I think, Tony, could you look that up?"
yeah.
And so, and Sunday night is more like a Bible study where Matthew has people ask questions. And so that, I mean, that is really handy. And there have been 2 or 3 times. So, I mean, I think the technology, if you're not intimidated by it, is your friend. It's not your enemy.
Of course, it could be abused. Let's acknowledge that you could just become
be playing around
right,
with it
and talking with your friends and lose track of the sermon. But that's on the individual. That's not on the speaker.
Now, I have known pastors, not personally, but just online, because I saw tweets going out when I was checking my timeline after church. They had tweets going out during the whole Sunday morning service. And they had certain quotes from their sermon that they set up to tweet out periodically during the message, like his key points he was trying to make.
That's great.
Okay.
It went out automatically, 11:30, 11:35.
That's actually creative.
Well, this goes back to what Matthew said originally. I mean, isn't this part of your point, Matthew, that this is another way to get the message out?
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. I mean, why doesn't the church have a Twitter account? And it's not something necessarily that the pastor has to be responsible for,
right.
But where if you find the layman who's got a passion in that, to be able to get your points or stuff to them, to be able to put stuff like that out, absolutely, you should have a presence there if you can. I mean, if you can do it well, I think there's many reasons for it to be done. One of the most effective things that we've been doing at Golden Grove, I think, is to have created a Facebook page. Goodness, we've got, I think over 60 different people who are either in the church or connected with the church, where we can get announcements out and prayer requests out and different stuff like that. It shows up in people's news feed, and that actually has been extremely effective in communicating with our congregation.
Of course, what you don't want to have happen is the tweets going out that say, "Why did we ever hire this guy?" Anybody else understand what he's talking about?
You don't ever want
Let's all go to Second Church next week.
You don't ever want to see your sermon quotes tweeted out with the hashtag fail.
Love it. Well, also, too, in this whole discussion, aren't we talking about especially getting on board with a generation that communicates different than the generation, say, above me? I mean, isn't that part of this?
Sure.
It has to be. I mean, it absolutely has to be.
Right. Yeah.
If it's not, we've totally lost them. Am I freezing up? Am I all?
Oh, you're frozen, dude.
Frozen.
Yeah. Oh, gee.
Fail.
Frozen chosen,
this is
baby.
a metaphor for Matthew's life. Can I just say no?
There you go.
He's smiling.
Oh. I'm back, baby. I'm back.
Do you know, for a long time, I resisted texting, and I finally bought a low-level, the bottom rung texting plan, because the problem was more and more I was texting people, and I learned that for some people, this is the way they communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a really good suggestion here for everybody on that. If you are hesitant to add money to a cell phone plan for texting, which drives me nuts, I've said this before and I'll say it again, text is little bits of data that are traveling over the data network. There's no point that data should have such a tiered pricing or a higher price on it. But anyways, if you are in the same boat that Tony found himself in, you can get a free Google Voice number that you can text anybody from. You can text any number for free as many times as you want and receive text messages just like you would on a phone. If you've got a smartphone, there is a Google Voice app probably, either for your phone or else you can go to their mobile version of their site and do all that kind of texting and not cost a dime for that privilege. So there's a little helpful hint.
All right, let's move along here. We have talked a little bit about the book, Heaven is for Real, and this past week, I think it was on Monday, the Burpo family was on the Today Show. I know that is Steven in the chat room today, guys?
Yes, Steven.
Yeah, I know
in here.
Steven has read this book. As a matter of fact, he did a blog on this, and so we want to give a shout out to Steven and encourage people to.
I'll link to it right now.
All right, to go to his blog to read. I've read the book. Anyone else here among us read this besides me?
I'm reading it. I have it on my iPhone. So
okay.
Moving through.
That's just music to my ear. Steve saying his iPhone.
Where is this review?
I'm sorry.
I figure
music
if you're going
to your
to join
ears.
the beast,
I mean, it's like angels singing.
If you're
over
going to
here
join
in
the
DC.
beast,
this is the moment I've been waiting for.
If you will join the beast, you need to maximize your place. You can't
Yeah.
see that, can you?
Have you heard about the forehead dock that they're making for that, Steve? There, you can actually attach it to your forehead.
Why that's so
And they've
fun.
got one for your right hand, where you
Yeah.
can put it right here.
Really? And on
So
your
you
forehead?
you can have the iPhone mounted here.
I want it,
or
strangely.
here.
I don't know. I just the past few weeks, I want that. Yeah.
You guys, I'm telling you, you guys are going to get us in trouble.
Oh, we're in trouble already.
You know, we are trying to get Todd Burpo on
Yes.
as a guest on our show.
Yes.
As you might imagine, this book, his life is crazy because this thing has blown up. It's on the New York
Yeah.
Times bestseller list. So
Number one. Number one.
Number one. I'm sorry. Yes, number one. And I have right now where we are is you can't work with Todd specifically. You have to work through the publicist at Thomas Nelson, and so that's where I am. And she's asked me to shoot some dates, and so I've already done that. And so we're hoping that we can get Todd on the show. I recommend this book. I recommend it. Oh, do I recommend it?
I've only heard good things about this book.
Yeah, and what arrests you in the book is the fact that this boy who wasn't even quite 4 yet comes out of this whole experience, and he has information that he could not otherwise know had he not gained it supernaturally. And I talked to one pastor who did a sermon series on heaven because of this book, and so he walks away with all these doctrinal and theological things about heaven. That's not what I walked away with at all, because my takeaway was this little boy's experience. It was his experience. What I walked away was this sense of mystery and wonder about my faith, and I love the fact that he knew things that he could not have otherwise known. We can't put this under the microscope. There isn't a logical explanation for it. You must say that this is something supernatural. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I have now, in 35 years of ministry, been by the bedsides of well over 200 dying people, many of whom were saints. And I can verify that for some of those experiences, they have come to be a second tier of rationale for why I trust God so completely, because of things just like this. Situations where you just sense and you can see that as the husk of the body is beginning to peel away with all its limitations, there's something inside that is not so limited, that has access to things. I heard of a story. The people attended the church in Seneca as the grandmother was dying, who had been a Free Methodist evangelist. As she was dying, she'd been born without an eardrum on one side of her head. The other side, she had a cochlear implant, which gave her some measure of hearing. She asked the doctor to remove it in the hours leading up to her death, and he didn't want to, but she insisted. And she said, it's interfering with my hearing. And he thought, well, this is an indication that oxygen levels are too low. Or what. The long and the short of it, when they took it out, she said, that's much better. He said, well, you can't hear a thing now, can you? She said, of course I can, which surprised him because she shouldn't have been able to hear anything.
Right.
And as he walked clear to the end of the hall where no one in the room could hear him, she heard every word. And as her body was slipping from, or her spirit was slipping from the body and towards heaven, the things that she reported in those moments were like the things that I have witnessed in others. And speaking of that, I don't know.
This is where I wish that sometimes I wasn't or a pastor, that I was a layperson, because Steve, if you were my pastor, I would get so many good tweets. I've got a really good one right out of that conversation. Really? The husk of the body peeled away. I love it.
Thank you.
Boy.
My parents just told me a story. They had a friend who passed away, and a very similar thing happened to her, where she kind of had this out-of-body experience, and she went in and saw Jesus, right. And there's a picture before she died that her husband took of her laying in the bed, and multiple people say that in this picture, clear as day, you see two angels over her bed, almost guarding it. Huh. And I mean, my mom was like, that can't be what I think it is, and she showed it to my dad, my dad's a believer, but he growing up on a farm, it takes seeing to be believing, right, and my dad's like, well, that two angels above her bed, and so I mean, I tell you what, with you look at the books out now, Love Wins, about heaven and hell. You look at this book, Tyler Burpo's. People have a lot of questions.
Oh boy! Oh man!
And we don't have.
I've got Rob Bell on that.
We don't have all the answers.
Right.
But we do know, and we do believe that there is more to life than what you can see.
Amen.
Yeah.
And that's what right. people need to know. Because what do we see? We see a tsunami wiping out villages. We see bombs dropping in Libya. We see the Middle East going crazy. We see our neighbor can't afford to pay their house payment. Everything we see is to bring us down or drag us down and take away all our hope. Mm-hmm. And if you put your hope in what you can see, you're never going to get anywhere in life. But our hope is what is not seen, and the one who is the one that we can't see literally is the one that is moving. He's in control, and in our lives wants to connect those two things.
Yeah.
And is there any better time in the church for us to be talking about these things? And
absolutely.
To actually lay down some good theological framework for people and discuss them in a way different probably from previous generations, because certainly these things were discussed even if you just go back a couple decades ago, but it was always from the standpoint of the hellfire and brimstone, probably. That just seems to be the mindset as you talk to people who came out of those generations where eternity was talked about. That's all that's really remembered. But there certainly does seem to be a acquisitive spirit in people that says, "But what about heaven? What are we dealing with there? What does that mean for us?"
Right.
Well, and also, Matthew and I at the church have been leading an adult Sunday school class, and it's been apologetics we've been talking about. And I'm getting back to your point, Heath, and that is that I have said throughout this class, you can call Christians whatever you want to, but don't say we're nuts, and don't say that there isn't a rationale for believing that there was an intelligent designer that mapped out the universe, and that there is something beyond what we can see. And Heaven is for Real is a book that taps into that in a strong way. And people in the chat room that have read this book know that there's a lot that I'm not saying about it. There's a lot that I'm not giving away. I would love to. I'm busting at the seams to talk about 2 or 3 things that are revealed in this book, but I want you to discover that. I want you to read it. And you will not be disappointed.
And let's be honest, we're not going to construct our theology based on books like this. There are obvious. Anytime a living human says that we have seen what is eternal and infinitely above our capacity to grasp and understand, we always speak in metaphoric language. I mean, look at the book of Revelation. Look at the times when we talk about heaven's streets being paved with gold and so forth. There's a message behind the symbolism that expresses reality.
Yes.
But we're always speaking in symbols because language fails us in this sphere to speak of the other sphere, which is infinite. And I know that it's been mentioned in the chat room. Perhaps some of our listeners have not yet heard that while we're on the subject of death, dying, and so forth, that Liz Taylor has apparently died today. And for many of my generation, she represented the best of Hollywood in acting and perhaps the worst in some other
I think
areas.
for my generation, it was Perfume, right? That's all I can think of Liz Taylor. Doesn't she have like white diamonds
White
or
diamonds,
something like
that's
She
that?
did turn towards spiritual things. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but in her last months, she reconnected with her priest and really was said to be undergoing some serious spiritual conversations, which is an indication that there may be some spiritual life coming out of that.
Well, we also, it's amazing. Just during that conversation, we talked about Twitter and all. That there was an explosion in Israel, bombs, missiles launched from Gaza into Israeli cities. I mean, it just kind of proves what we're talking about.
Yeah. Your point being that Twitter.
I mean, we're hearing about the news via Twitter and via social media, and it's bad news.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on here, and it is time for... Download of the Week! Yay! All righty, our download of the week is Format Factory. A few weeks ago, we talked about Handbrake as a program where you can rip DVDs but also convert files. I use Format Factory for converting files. If there is another person out there that actually runs a TV tuner card in their computer and uses Windows Media Center, sometimes there's a bit of a challenge if you want to convert those files over to an MP4 format. For others of you, this is like foreign language. But those that are understanding what I'm talking about, I found this to be a great tool. It is PC only. That ought to warm Steve's heart.
Yeah. I actually had to use this program just last week, and it did do exactly what I needed it to do. It was one of those Windows Media Center recordings that I needed to convert to an MP4. I can't say, it did what I needed it to do, and it did it well. I can't say much for the layout of the program. It is a little jumbled as far as the buttons and trying to figure out exactly what you're doing. I'm trying to think of the better way to describe that, but it just gets a little bit complicated as you go through there, but it does what you need it to do.
I'm being real nice. I could make comments about, well, when you've been playing with the kitty thing, the apples and so forth, you have to step up to a real technology.
That's right. After you get away from developers that really want the user to be able to figure out what to do, but well, effectively.
You got your version, I've got mine,
All right. Well, on that, let's move along here, and let's get into They Said It.
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
The people attacked us, and the army was helping them. The army was among those who shot at us. Masood Johan Abde Mak, a 47-year-old Coptic Christian who works as a garbage collector, describing persecution Christians have experienced in Cairo since President Hamza Mubarak's ouster. Source, the LA Times.
I got about halfway through, and he ran up to the podium and said, "Wrap it up, wrap it up." I was just flabbergasted. Lori Treen explaining what it was like when Father Bartley P. Baker interrupted her during a funeral where she was in the middle of eulogizing her 96-year-old grandmother. Source, Fox News.
I think everyone agrees with the goal of reducing abortion by encouraging consideration of other alternatives. I hope that women who are considering an abortion will use this 3-day period to make good choices. South Dakota Governor Dennis Dagard, after signing into a law requiring women to wait 3 days after meeting with a doctor to have an abortion. The controversial law creates the longest waiting period in the nation. Source, AOL News.
Okay, all right.
Can we start right from the beginning and just say in that story that Steve read, in the quote that he read, poor Lori Treen. Can you imagine how she was teased at school? Lori Treen.
My question is,
Love it.
my question goes the other way. How do you get a great Father Bartley P. Baker? I mean, when can I get a name like that?
Oh, come on. Hey, listen, the great thing about this story that Steve read is how many pastors have wanted to get up in the middle of a funeral when someone was droning on and say, okay, let's wrap this thing up. We're pulling you off stage if you don't move this thing along. Oh, gee.
Can
Wrap
we
it
do
up.
somebody like a raise of hands? Like,
Yeah.
No,
How many-
no, I won't.
How many times have people wanted to go to this father during one of his messages and say, wrap it up,
well.
wrap it up?
hey, now she has every right to. She's got like a free pass to do that someday. So
Sometimes I think, if you go in a comedy club, if you're bombing or when your set's coming too close, they have a little red light. Maybe we need...
Well, am I the only one that
the
has
Gong
had that
Show,
same
guys.
thought
I
during
mean-
a sermon I'm delivering?
Yeah. No, wait a minute. TG's on it here. The Gong
yeah,
Show.
the Gong Show.
Boom.
All every church needs is a big gong. That when it just starts to go long,
What was
someone
old
just walks
church
up.
last
Gong.
No, wait a minute. I can see you, though, Matthew. I can just picture that you're preaching, and there are times you get in the groove, and I can imagine how you would react if someone got up and hit the gong. It's like, are you for real? Really?
Yeah.
Who was the guy? Who was the little clown that would come out on the Apollo? If the people got booed off, the Apollo the little clown would come out, sweep in.
Well, on the Gong Show, it was Gene the dancing machine.
Oh
He'd come
my!
Oh, yeah.
So is this how this conversation goes? Well, Miss Beulah T. Peterson, I know you hadn't been wanting to get rid of that organ, but if you let us get rid of that organ, we'll put a gong up there, and you can ring it anytime you
Ring
want
it.
to.
There's a good southern.
Ring
Ring it. Ring it. Yeah, how you spell ring it? All right. Steve, on that story that Matthew read, I remember you saying right after things happened in Egypt, you made something along the line, a comment that, we number one, we don't know that this is going to lead to democracy. And number two, what is going to be the plight of Christians who are already marginalized in this society? But at least with Mubarak, it was kept at, a level that at least was tolerable.
Well, it's been noted by political scientists, not just myself, that democracy is in and of itself nothing more than mob rule. It needs to be informed and guided by certain principles. Otherwise, if you have a country where everybody votes to kill everybody that has a bulbous nose, let's say, or bald head or whatever, that would be legitimate. I mean, they voted that. So there have to be values undergirding that. I'm not sure that those values have risen to a sufficient significance in Egyptian culture because there's no outcry. There's no outrage over the Christmas bombing of the Coptic church. You may remember.
Yeah, we covered that.
Hosni Mubarak had acted to intervene after the bombing, but Christians there have been traditionally unprotected. And for all the conversation that says that, well, all you need to do is let democracy come to a country, that is not all you need to do. There need to be values at the core that the democratic masses will then enact and support.
Yesterday on a political show, someone, and this is one of these where you have more than one person talking, and someone made the comment about democracy coming to Egypt, and right away the person who was in charge of the conversation said, do we know that's what we have there? I mean, this wasn't a Christian show or anything like that. This is just political wrangling where a person said, is that what we have there? Do we know that we have that there? Let's be honest. We don't know what we have in Egypt yet. We know that Hosni Mubarak has been thrown out, but we're not quite sure yet what's going to replace that.
That's a really good point.
Charles Finney made a statement in his Systematic Theology, which I don't universally recommend, but there are some good points, especially where he talks about civil affairs. He says that generally people have that kind of government which their passions and their I'll say moral excellences demand. If they will be self-governed people, they will require less government from the authorities. If they will not govern themselves, God gives them tyrants who will rule them. And so I don't know the situation in Egypt. All I know is this narrow slice that we're looking at, the relationship with the Christians. Yeah. For all the talk that we hear from Muslim talking heads here in America about how they prize and they respect the rights of religious minorities, we have not seen that. In Iran, in Iraq, they're fleeing the country. We covered just a few months ago.
That's right.
How some of them in Sweden were terrified that they were going to be sent back.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yep.
When 51 were killed in a church around Christmas time again.
Right.
Or no, that was Halloween, I guess, the Halloween night that took place. And so you look at this, and nowhere are you seeing the respect and the protection of religious minorities, especially Christians, in these countries. So I'm not convinced this is a positive.
This is all kind of happening around the same time. You saw it happen in Egypt, and the American media and a lot of people in America, it's like, oh, they want their freedom, man. We should get rid of this dictator. The Tea Party goes out and has a rally, a peaceful rally, and, you just need to shut up, Then, you have these union protesters in Wisconsin, same kind of deal. They're like, that government's a tyrant. And I think it just kind of what your background is, what your political persuasion is, really affects how you look at that. Because if people went and protested like they did in Egypt, no one would ever say, well, we need to get rid of our president. Yeah. But it's like for Americans, we feel like we have this right because, I don't know, but when they're protesting in Egypt, we're like, well, they just need to get rid of their president. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we've all thought of that.
And the point you make, Steve, is one that we've had in conversations before, and that gets to what I call the principle within. So these things, again, democracy is nothing but mob rule unless there is a guiding principle.
Absolutely.
And it's not just a guiding principle for the people. Ultimately, it becomes a guiding principle within. So I have said before that we can talk all about things like pornography on the internet, the importance to avoid it, and the escalating aspects of pornography, and I can set up accountability, and there are people that are accountable to me about that, and we've set up these accountability things in our lives. But at the end of the day,
it's on them.
If there's not a principle within, I know of all kinds of ways to get around that. I don't have to use any of my computers to view pornography. I can go to the public library. There are any number of things that I can do. And I can get very nefarious with that. I mean, I know enough about computers to be dangerous. And so what at the end of the day would prohibit me? Well, there's got to be some kind of principle within and a desire to do right and to know what the right is.
Which is why we preach the gospel. I would also say this, that those of us who have lived this privileged life as American citizens should never dwell long under the disillusion, I would say, that we are always going to enjoy it. As our nation becomes less centered in the principles around which it once coalesced, we didn't live them perfectly. I mean, we all acknowledge that, but we acknowledged what the right core was. Sure. And as we become less centered in those things, we are seeing an erosion of civil rights unparalleled. If you look at it through the span of history, how long it took for our forefathers, the generations, the hundreds and thousands of years, to get the right of the specific search warrant alone, where they have to specify, this is what we're looking for, and this is who we believe it will belong to, and this is where we will find it. The general search warrant before gave them the right to come in. Anything they wanted to take out, they could take out. They had a right to be there. And our forefathers, in writing the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, said, no, you must specify these things. We have, in the span of my lifetime, lost more rights than I think we were able to gain in almost 1,000 years.
Steve, it's a Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, well,
this is a positive
and
thing.
I'm a patriot, and I'm acting.
Hey, real quick, I do want to just touch, even if it's lightly, the story that Heath alluded to, and they said it. This is considered a controversial law that was signed in by the governor there in South Dakota. So a woman cannot get an abortion now without a 3-day waiting period. When in the show prep, Steve, I mentioned that. And what was your comment? You talking about a handgun or something?
I said you have to wait 3 days to get a handgun. You know, a life is involved. That's the rationale.
Yeah.
Either way, so I think this is fair.
I think this story caught my attention in that the article, the title was "Controversial Law."
Mm-hmm.
And
who's it controversial to?
Yeah,
it's a good question.
It does not impede a doctor's right to perform an abortion to save a mother's life.
Right, absolutely.
It doesn't at all.
Right.
This is only what we would call birth control abortions, you know, after the effect.
All right, well, let's rush on to our last story. Listen, okay, if you're going to unfriend your wife, you know, you just might, you know, you might raise a red flag with your wife. We have this
you might also want to be sure that you don't have another family. I mean, but I'm just saying. Go ahead.
You say that like it's a bad thing, you know?
I mean, how crazy is this story? This guy unfriends his wife. He goes out and marries another woman, and the reason he unfriends his wife, his first wife, is because he wants to be able to post pictures of his new wife and family on Facebook. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me, man. Oh, yeah.
What? You've never done that?
Yeah.
I don't even know how to unfriend somebody on Facebook.
Well, I'm not going to tell you because I'll be down one friend. If I tell it on the air, I'll be down a bunch.
I always find it hilarious. I tell you, this whole unfriending thing is just, gracious.
Yeah.
In the church, she unfriended me, and then you get the people who have they succumb to one of the Facebook viruses that goes through their friends and contact lists and get upset. You unfriended me on Facebook. No, I didn't.
Well, I had that happen to me recently. It was somebody in your church too, by the way. And my only thought was, and I asked Tony about it, I said, do you suppose that I have said or done something to offend them? Because if I know my heart, I never want to, you know, say or do something.
It was just
don't
somebody
know
in our
your
church.
heart.
I mean, this is the plague at Golden
Except
Grove.
Tony. Tony. I do want to offend him.
Golden Grove, we unfriend all the time.
Yeah.
Say the wrong thing.
We succumb to the viruses that make us unfriend all of us.
Well, this individual had some ill health. And I didn't know if, you know, this may come as a shock to you guys, but I do joke around on Facebook.
No
and
way.
Yeah. And
Be serious, man.
I didn't want to have said something inadvertently. The goal of my life is to do no harm and to do all the good I can by whatever means I can for as long as ever I can for the glory of God. So I do care about it. Yeah, I do care about it. And Tony said, no, you're being an idiot, which is his answer to everything.
Well, what the hardest part about all this is making sure that your wives don't follow each other on Twitter. Yeah. That's really the...
Well, and here's what did this guy really think that he was going to be able to post all these pictures of his new family and he was going to keep them... He's going to keep his wife from finding out by simply unfriending her.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy is that?
Was he living in the same town?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He didn't leave or anything.
He didn't divorce the first wife though, right? He just told the second wife that he was divorced.
He just moved up.
He wanted to collect the whole set. As I
How come? Let me ask you this: how come? I mean, one of the big shows now is Sister Wives. How come you don't ever hear about women? It's always a man. All the movies, all the real life stories, it's always about a man having multiple wives. You don't ever hear about a woman.
Oh, yeah. Recently.
I don't ever hear about it. Recently where?
No, it was
TG's
in the
making up
news, really.
scripture. You're making up stories.
All right, well, listen, the four of us could
Hey, did you just say I'm making up scripture?
Yeah, man, he's gone rogue on us. He and Sarah Palin, man. Got to have a bullet put him down.
Oh, dear goodness.
All right, real quick. Heath, last week you made a bold prediction about the Clemson Tigers and how great they're going to do in the tournament. So, and how's that working?
I don't. Did I? We won.
Listen. If I would have had time, I was going to actually rip the clip and just play it real quick, but I just didn't have time.
I thought that
there was the problem right there.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Okay.
And this is where I'm at.
All right.
I listen to 104.9 and Sports Talk Radio around here, and I've always been fascinated at how people around here are so captivated by spring football practice. They're so captivated by college football recruiting, and that's always bothered me. You know, the reason is by the first week of March, basketball is done. I mean, North Carolina and Duke fans, they're following basketball till the middle of April, and so they don't care about recruiting college football. So I say all that to say this. Under normal circumstances, had Clemson been given the opportunity to have adequate rest and not been jobbed by officials and Pepper and the call where the guy flopped, he was not touched by any Clemson player. He merely tripped over his own foot. Had that call gone the other way, we would have won, and everybody knows that. La-dee-da.
Yeah, okay, let me just say this, that North Carolina fans and Wisconsin fans are still engaged. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you better believe it.
Has a team
bigamy?
has like a team ever won like the Super Bowl, and then the college team won the basketball or won something?
If at all, no, I don't think so. Michigan probably is the one closest to that.
Hey, can we just say though? I mean, isn't it a happy occasion that 3 ACC teams are in the Sweet 16?
Yes, the Big Least. Get them out of here. I was so happy.
Yeah, and the moral of that story is don't go to a conference where you're going to get beat up the whole season. Come to the ACC where there's only 2 or 3 good teams.
We weren't bashing the Big Ten, Mr. Tony.
I didn't say, no,
I'm talking about
we're bashing the Big East.
NCAA tournament. The Big Ten teams, isn't there only just like one left?
Look, well, here's the thing. This is, and I'm going to defend the Big East here for a moment.
Wow.
Their conference tournament is ridiculous. I mean, here's the thing.
The regular season is ridiculous.
They won't let us have a college football playoff because students will be out of class too much during Christmas break, but they'll make Connecticut play 5 games in a row in March.
Listen, the ACC, the regular season, gets to play the school of the prosthetics, while the East has to bang all season long, wear themselves out.
Are you telling me that Wake Forest is not an adequate basketball?
Yes.
And you know what I like about that? This all takes place in a
Boston
show
College.
where we start talking about
And Georgia
Japan,
Tech.
and from
And
an article where we're
Virginia.
talking about bigamy. We can get anywhere.
That's right.
When they say you can't get there from here, they've never met us.
Oh, man. All right.
When you guys talk sports, you go to sounding like a women's luncheon. Thanks,
no.
Miss Sally.
Sally.
Atta
All
girl, Sally.
Time to wrap the show up on that one. We want to remind you that next week we have in studio Dr. Melinda Denton.
Yes.
We also have with us now on site our giveaway because next week is also our 100th episode.
Yes, episode 100. What an accomplishment. Most podcasts only make it to 3.
Birthday gifts to Tony. We'll take cash in our birthday card.
That's right. Gift cards, if that's all you have. But, yeah, we'd rather have
make
cash.
sure they're like to Amazon or Apple or something like that. But, yeah, we'll take them.
If you want to be in on the drawing for the gift is Soul Searching, The Religious Life of American Teenagers. The book and the DVD, also A Faith of Their Own, which is the third wave of this massive research study that Melinda Denton is a part of. She's the lead author on this final book. She also is the co-author on the original study and the original book and DVD. So we'll be giving all 3 of those away next week. All you have to do is send your emails to the techologyshow@gmail.com, and your name will be entered in the drawing. again, really looking forward to having her in studio. Also, coming up in the future, we have Kevin Beers, who will be with us. Heath, who is Kevin Beers?
Kevin Beers works with the Hub up at, now you've made me forget it, big church in Buffalo. Why can't I think of the name of his church?
Hills?
No.
Well, Eastern Hills just got pumped there.
Yeah. But Kevin Beers is a great guy. He's actually leading the follow event that Houghton is doing at their church. He leads Hamburg. Yes, thank you, JC Phenom. Kevin's a great guy, very tech savvy. That's right. Kevin is very, very much.
That was
on
John
Twitter.
Brady. So
yes,
thank you,
the John Brady. Do not accept substitutes.
Another guest that we have coming on April the 20th. I know you're excited about, Steve, and that's Dr. Everett Piper.
I am.
Why your interest here with him?
I just, during the gathering in Jacksonville, I attended his presentation on propositional truth, the importance of that, and it was excellent. And there were 3 hecklers in the room, and he handled them in a Christian manner, but he handled them with such aplomb that inside I was jumping up and down cheering. So.
Are you serious? There really were?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Dissenters.
Well, I say hecklers.
Dissenters.
But what I'm saying is they were very vocal. They would cut him off and so forth. So it was, I was truly appreciative of the manner in which he responded, but he never backed down. He never got flustered.
Well,
he had the answers.
Yeah, we'll discuss his book, The Wrong Side of the Door, and also he's the president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University. We'll talk a little bit about
that place.
Yeah. On May the 4th, we're going to bring Aaron Gadsby in studio, and then via Skype, bring in Dr. Norman Wilson. I'm going to be talking a little bit about
Norman Wilson.
There you go.
I tell you what, the Wesleyan Hour, right?
Wrong Norman Wilson. Wrong Norman Wilson.
Oh.
This is the Dr. Norman Wilson at Indiana Wesleyan University.
I was so excited. I was thinking, wow.
You better stay excited.
I'm telling you. Technology Show.
Teeds is trying to get us in trouble here on the Technology Show.
Yeah.
Because he's in Washington, D.C., and he knows if a missile takes out our high mountain bunker, he's not around to pick up the pieces.
That's right. Love it.
I'm in a bunker of safety right here.
Love
buddy.
it. Dr. Norman Wilson has spoke before the Indiana State House on the issue of immigration, and he just appreciates this issue for the complexity that's in it, and he doesn't approach it from a simplistic point of view. And so we will be talking about that on May the 4th. On May the 11th, in studio, Dr. David Spittle. He is the president of Southern Wesleyan University, and he's announced his retirement and his resignation at Southern Wesleyan. So we got an email to him saying, hey, you need to come talk with us before you get out of Dodge, and so he has graciously consented to do that. Can we give props to Matthew TG? I had to run the controls today.
TGenator.
Yes.
And he had to give me, the crash course for dummies. And so we've got things just as simple as can be here.
I got a couple of quick FaceTime calls there too, right before the show began, to run through some stuff. But Tony, you've done great. I've been impressed. I mean, I got to watch the beginning of the show earlier with Robin and all this. I'm proud of you, buddy.
Yeah. Well,
I'm serious. I'm proud.
Again,
of you.
I want to say to our listeners,
I'm going to pat you on the head there.
Yeah. Okay. Can you get over there?
Move over this way just a little bit. Okay. There you go. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Seriously, to our listeners, everyone that listens to this podcast,
I think I threw up a little bit in the back.
TG is the tech guy, and just props to Matthew. And a lot of time and effort goes into that, and we appreciate all that he does. Listen, if you want to do further research on anything we've discussed today, you can find all the links to our stories we've covered at our website, thetechnologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, please send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com. If you want to be in the drawing for our 100th episode prize, you got to send us an email, all right? Please do that. If you want to leave a voicemail for us, you can call 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 3049-TEOLOGY, 304-986-5649. Leave a message, and we'll play your comments on the air. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Adios.
Bye.